Okay, hello guys, time for day number 4, so day number 4 of Kraków. Okay, so the 2nd of February, and today we planned to go to Auschwitz. Now, the original plan was to go to Auschwitz and the salt mines all together in one day. That was what we had planned and had booked as well. A day before, so on Tuesday, we got a message from the organization saying that Auschwitz and the salt mines should not be combined in one day, simply because it's really hectic and it's a lot to do, and when you combine the two in one day it probably doesn't go well. So we were advised to not plan them in one day, so we decided to do Auschwitz on Wednesday and the salt mines on Thursday. So that's what we did. Auschwitz, we were supposed to be there at 9, and the day before we actually got a message. We booked our tickets through Get Your Guide, and we actually got a message saying that the trip was on a later hour. We now had to be there at 10:15 and we were leaving at 10:50. It was all quite chaotic, and obviously leaving 2 hours later was not really what we wanted, but there was nothing we could do. They basically said that it was because of COVID regulations that we were supposed to be there 2 hours later. So we took the bus from Kraków to Auschwitz, which was quite cool because Poland was covered in snow. So the whole way there was just one road trip in the snow, which was obviously so pretty and so stunning, and I was so glad that we actually got to do that. It was so nice that we got to see some snow in Poland. We were both so stoked about that. So that is when we arrived in Auschwitz. We arrived a little late. We arrived at 10:20, and it was quite a struggle to find our guide. So if you travel with Get Your Guide, it is a lot of trouble finding your guide, and the organization, I was not happy about it. It was so chaotic. He was calling us all the time when we couldn't find him. It was so chaotic and it was not fun at all. It was not a fun way to start the trip, knowing that it's going to be such an emotional day and you start it so chaotic. That wasn't fun at all. But yeah, eventually we did make it. Eventually we got to Auschwitz and we found our guide, which was awesome. First we visited Auschwitz 1, which is the smaller concentration camp, and it was quite weird being there. I took a couple pictures, but I didn't take too much pictures, or I didn't record too much because it was so emotionally draining. I thought it was really hard being there and seeing all of these things, realizing what happened in that area. Just you're walking on these grounds and you're taking pictures and a person is talking to you about what happened, but comprehending that it actually happened and that a few years ago human beings did those things to other human beings is just... I got goosebumps walking around there, and it was so weird seeing there is a room where they have leftovers, possessions from the Jewish people that were killed in camp, that they actually left there, that are laying there right now, and you could see them. And that is what made it real for me, is the fact that their stuff is laying in rooms now. It was taken away from them, but they were just human beings, and that's not even the worst thing that happened to them, because that is just the start of everything that happened. It was quite rough. There were rooms where you could see pictures of children, and you could see in their eyes that they were just broken, but they weren't allowed to show it. You could see it. I thought it was so emotional. I highly advise not bringing little children to the camp, because I just wouldn't. I think that's a really bad idea. If you brought children, it's so emotional, and bringing children might make that a little bit too rough for the kids. The thing was, outside it was actually quite, you can't really call it pretty because of the history, but the buildings were pretty, but it was just so weird. It was surreal, like walking there and realizing like everything that happened. We had such a good tour guide as well. Like as we were walking through Auschwitz, she was like obviously talking about, you know, different people and telling stories, and she made it so real, but she also explained it in such a good way that it like became more real, and she literally like told us everything that we needed to know, and I was so grateful for our tour guide. She was amazing. She did such a good job. So yeah, Auschwitz one, not too many pictures, but it was quite emotional. We had like a 15-minute break, and then we were sent to Auschwitz Birkenau, and this was once again very chaotic because it's 3 kilometers from Auschwitz 1 to Auschwitz Birkenau, and no one told us how to get there. Eventually we figured out that there was like a shuttle bus, so we could take that, but it wasn't like explained by our tour guide, so that once again wasn't really good. But we eventually arrived to Auschwitz 2, so Auschwitz Birkenau, and there's not a lot left of that place. It's like 40 times bigger than Auschwitz number 1, which you could notice. It was so big, but not a lot of the structures and the buildings were kept. So that was weird seeing that. There were also like a part of a train that was used to transport the Jewish and the Polish and whatever, all the people that were killed there, that was used to transport them into the camps, was left there. So like a piece of that train, which was also quite weird to see. And then at one point we were walking towards a monument and towards where the crematoria were, and that is when our guide kind of told us like this is the way they were walking towards death, so this is the way to death, and this is where we stop talking and we walk in silence. And that was like a goosebump moment, because I got really like chilly and silent, and I felt really weird because I was walking the same path so many of them walked, but I knew I was going to be fine, but they knew they weren't going to be fine, and that just like hit at one moment. It hit me that, you know, what happened there was horrible. So when you walk down this path, you eventually come on an area where they have built an amazing monument. You have these like gravestones, and in every language something is written on them. So I took a picture in Dutch, but in English it basically says, "Forever let this place be a cry of despair and a warning to humanity, where the Nazis murdered about 1.5 million men, women and children, mainly Jews from various countries of Europe." Reading it in English was okay, but reading it in Dutch, which is my language, but like hit too close to home. Our tour guide also talked a lot about the Belgian people and the Dutch people living in the concentration camps, and it was so weird hearing that, because at school we basically just learned about Jews living there, or not living there, but yeah, and people from Poland. We never actually got like news about Belgians living there and people from Holland living there, and it was so weird hearing stories about my country and the people from my country who died there. It like made it close, like hit close to home. We ended the tour near a shed, and this shed was filled with bunk beds, 3-layered bunk beds. Our tour guide told us that on each bed 7 women had to sleep, which is horrible to start with. But this shed was used as a place to die because the crematoria was so filled and so busy. Not everyone could die in the crematoria, so this shed was literally used to store like 700 women until the day they died. These women were put there to die. It's safe to say that this was a very emotional experience. I highly recommend going there because I think we need to know about history and we need to be able to talk about what happened in order to not let it happen again. If you don't know what happened years ago, it will become easier to just do it yourself. But if you know what happened in the past and how much of an impact that had on the human beings, you will not let that happen again. So I think everyone needs to know about the past and definitely needs to know about what happened. I think that's what we owe to the people who passed away there. We owe them to learn about this place and to visit it and to teach our children about what happened and to learn more about this place. We were both kind of shook up, and it was quite good that we got like a 2-hour bus ride home so we could kind of like come to our senses again and kind of just like let our emotions run wild, which is what we did. We had lunch on the bus as well. Didn't film it because after this whole experience I was kind of a little bit shook up. But this is when we came back to Krakow and we were both quite hungry, so that is when we decided to actually sit down and have some coffee and a little cake, which was good because we were kind of quite hungry. We had like original cakes from Poland, or at least from like the girl who worked there. She said it was like originally made from there, so we had it. I mean, we had to. So that is what we ate. I had like a chai latte and I had like a chocolate cake, and my cousin had like, I can't remember what she had. And we kind of talked about everything that we saw that day. We then walked back to the center to study Miasto, and there's actually a museum called Rynek Underground, which I highly recommend visiting. It's so pretty and I don't really know how to explain it. It's a very interesting museum because it's quite interactive, so you have like movies and you have like noise, like sounds that they play, which makes it a little bit more real, but it's basically like giving you an image of Krakow through the years. It's an archaeological museum. In this museum they have so many remains of like medieval constructions. And it's so cool to visit. Even if you have children, they actually had like a little children's area as well. So if you have children, highly recommend also like taking them, because it was quite good for children. It was such an interactive place that made it quite interesting for children as well. Then we just kind of had a little stroll around in like Krakow in like the evening time, because it's quite pretty out there, like when it's dark. And then we decided to end our day by having a traditional Polish dinner. I had something called potato pancakes, which apparently is something typical Polish, like a Polish dish. And I had like a stew with it. It was quite good. It was quite yummy. I didn't know like what made it Polish, but it was quite good. It was quite yummy and I actually really enjoyed it, so I'm not complaining. But I didn't know that like potato pancakes were something typical from Poland, but the lady in the store assured me that it was. And that was basically everything for day 4. It was quite a busy day, basically just because Auschwitz took up so much of our time. But yeah, that was day 4. I will see you again tomorrow on day 5.